read the script to get the meeting started. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Vanessa Willis. I am one of the co-chairs for the CPAC committee. Before we begin, I'd like to note that this meeting includes the remote participation of members as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021. Due to the declared local health pandemic, I would now call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to call the roll so that we may verify that the presence of a quorum is here. Ms. Hillary?
Thank you, Ms. Vanessa. Melissa Newman,
Present.
Markella Smith,
Present.
Mary Jamin McGuire,
Present.
Britt Howell,
Present.
Grace Rude,
Present.
Tanessa Green, Shannon Lemon,
I'm present and grateful to see Miss Vanessa Willis with us. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
Makeda Zulu Gillespie,
Present.
Jason Eisen,
Present.
Vanessa Willis,
Did y'all hear me present?
got it, thank you. Alexis Penny, Alexis let me know earlier he has a conflict and isn't able to attend the meeting tonight, so he won't be here. Bill English
Present.
and Courtney Schroeder.
Present.
Thanks all, that is 11 members present, quorum is 9. I'll turn the meeting back over to the chairs to get to the agenda. Thanks.
You're muted, Miss
You're
Willis.
muted. There we go.
Thank you, Ms. Hillary. With that, we will proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's legislation information management system, which is available at lims.minneapolis.mn.gov. And now we need to have an adoption of the agenda. Is there any one that need to add or take, or what say you about the agenda?
I move to accept the agenda as is.
I'll second.
It has been moved and second that we accept the agenda as is without any additions or corrections. Can we have a roll call, Ms. Hillary, for the agenda adoption?
Yes, Melissa Newman,
Aye.
Markella Smith,
Aye.
Mary Jamin McGuire,
Aye.
Britt Howell,
Aye.
Grace Rude,
Aye, sorry.
Tanessa Green. Okay, I don't think she's on yet. Shannon Lemon,
Aye.
Makeda Zulu Gillespie,
Aye.
Jason Eisen,
Aye.
Vanessa Willis,
Aye.
Bill English,
Aye.
Courtney Schroeder.
Aye.
Thanks all, that's 11 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. The agenda is adopted.
Thank you, everybody. It's so passed. Next, the meeting minutes from 12/2. Is there any corrections or anything need to be added or taken out? If not, can I have a motion and a second to accept the minutes from 12/2?
So moved. Second.
It has been moved and second to accept the minutes. Mary, did you have your hand up? Okay, to move and second to accept the December the 2nd minutes. Can we have roll call, Ms. Hillary, please?
Yes, Melissa Newman,
Aye.
Markella Smith,
Aye.
Mary Jammin McGuire,
Aye.
Britt Howell,
Aye.
Grace Rood,
Aye.
Shannon Lemon,
Aye.
Makeda Zulu Gillespie,
Aye.
Jason Eisen,
Aye.
Vanessa Willis,
Aye.
Bill English,
Aye.
Courtney Schroeder.
Aye.
I'm sorry, did you respond, Courtney?
Aye.
Oh, thanks. So that is 11 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. Those minutes for December 2nd are accepted. Thank you.
With the minutes accepted, we'll move to the next agenda item, which is the Upper Harbor Terminal Draft Coordinated Plans for public comment. This plan was released. You'll see it, and it'll have some changes from the 12 December the 2nd meeting. The formatting changes from version. The community entity timeline was added. The community benefit guide added in implementation sections. Additions of the glossary and a few items moved to an appendix. You also received a flyer that you can also download and share. And Eric will now provide us a brief city update. Now, okay, Eric?
All right, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm in a new setup, so it's a little hokey.
Okay.
So,
I'm gonna.
so I have a few things to update you on from the city. One, in general, the city's budget is going to be debated finally and potentially approved at the end of the evening. The actual city council meeting that addresses the special city council meeting will begin at 10 o'clock this evening. So when you're done with this meeting and you more municipal shenanigans, you can watch the city council meeting at 10. I wanted to update you on a meeting I had with the University of Minnesota, a meeting with a professor there about looking at some modeling around impacts of development on properties in the neighborhood. And while there is not a specific model that works exactly for the Upper Harbor, there are some other things that might be able to show some impacts to valuations based on criteria and variables. And so I've been given, like good professors at the university too, he gave me 4 studies that I have to read. And I think I'll read those, and then I'm probably going to have a call out for some of the folks that are on this committee who'd want to maybe help me with how to react and talk with the professor again about how to scope out a study to show impacts. And this might be something we do at a higher scale as opposed to just looking at the impacts of development at Upper Harbor. We might be able to look at how other factors and variables impact the valuation of housing in the North Side because of the other studies that the university has done in the past. So I'll be reading those over the next week or so, and then I think we'll probably give you a call after the holidays for some advice and see if there's some willing people. And I think I could guess who might be willing to help me. At least one person. Yes, ma'am. I'm not complaining. I want my help. I need some help. So I see you, Bill. But we'll put that out there. So that's that. I think that's moving in a good direction. The second thing I wanted to tell you about is we had a meeting today with some of the members of the CPC, some civil rights attorneys, the Public Policy Project, James Trice, and Tavon Nolan, who wears many hats and just just downright good community leader, but also with our learning table team and a couple of other community members and staff from the city and the city attorney's office. The city attorney was pulled away, unfortunately, for some of the budget, the last minute budget issues that are happening right now. But we walked away, I believe, hopeful that we walked away with discussions about how have the city partner with these attorneys to start to build the defensible case to put, essentially Black folks or American descendants of slavery at the front of this project in a more explicit way. So we agreed to convene that group again in about a month, just after the holidays and the new year. And then in the meantime, I have a list of things that I have to do internally to try and make sure that we can have that deal moving. So when we meet next time, we're talking about action steps as opposed to theoretical partnerships. So that's moving forward. UROC and the Roy Wilkins Center at the University of Minnesota, which is run by Dr. Samuel Myers, have agreed to meet with the city as well to help with framing that work. I'm very appreciative to Makeda Zulu Gillespie, who is willing to work with the city in her role as the UROC director and connecting us with the Roy Wilkins Center and Dr. Samuel Myers. If you don't know him, he is a preeminent expert in civil rights issues in the United States. So he's a good asset to have in Minnesota, and we're hopeful that we'll get some advice. But we're starting to put some of the pieces in place so we can get some action steps. And I'm hopeful that it's not only about the Upper Harbor, but other practices and policies and procedures that the city has in place that might intentionally or unintentionally impact the lives of Black people. So that's the two things I have updates for. If you have any questions, I'll take them now. I see Mary's hand up.
Yep, Mary has her hand up.
Bill had his up first, though.
No, go ahead, Mary.
Okay, Mary.
Mary, you're on mute.
Unmute, Mary.
Thank you. When you're evaluating the property, for different purposes, can you please include the close by northeast neighborhoods in that?
Yeah, we can. We won't do a study until we talk to this committee about it. So the geography has not been set, but I'm looking at it also as an advantage. If we can look at other variables, we might be more inclusive of property, because then we can see how displacement pressures are impacting values in some of the areas in the Northeast. As you know, the green zone goes into Northeast, and it's there's some concentrated areas of poverty there. So it's possible that we'll look even further into Northeast.
So I'm interested in working on that committee.
Okay, thank you, Mary.
Yep.
I'm not looking for. I don't need
to fit articles out. We could read them ahead of time.
Okay.
Can you share?
I will share the studies that I have. I'll give them to Hillary, and she can put it in the send it out to the group.
My question, my point was not to ask a question, simply to advise the committee, as I've so often said. I want to commend Eric for his work today in pulling this group together with the city attorney. It again demonstrates our commitment that we don't have to always be so distrustful of our city colleagues who work with us, because I have personally observed, and I've been working with the city a long time, and they have always been transparent with us, straightforward with us. And I want to express my appreciation for the committee and let those of us who are on this call know that we can trust and always verify. But let's keep it going in that direction.
Yeah. Thank you, Bill, and I agree with that. Always verify. Always verify. Any other questions? Thank you so much for the time tonight.
Okay. What's our next agenda?
Can I ask a quick question in general? Is Philippe on the call tonight?
I don't know if Councilmember Cunningham is on, because almost all the council members are in. All the council members should be in the city council public hearing right now.
Okay.
But I do have time with him tomorrow to brief him. He's been consumed, as all of our elected officials have been, with the budget over the last 2 weeks. Is there something you'd like me to communicate to him?
It would have been nice to kind of get his thoughts on the process, how he feels about the plan, and then also some insight on what happens if the plan does not get passed at City Council. What happens to all our work? Those are just some questions we would like to hear from
Okay.
him.
I'm just so we have some context, I will give you what we're doing from a staff perspective, and I'll convey these to the council member. As you know, we've put this out for public comment, and that goes till January 15th. We as a staff team have been briefing council members individually that have shown interest. So in the process, and giving them a real in-depth review of the work that this committee has done, and really making sure that they understand what's on the table, and highlighting all the community benefits that can come out of this, and the amount of work that you've done. So we're hopeful that we're doing the groundwork now from a staff perspective, and we bring in Hillary and Joanna and our public works officials. So any kind of the technical issues that are there that they want to ask, we give. We're giving an update briefing to the mayor later this month, and so we're hopeful that there won't be any surprises like the concept plan. We've also told them that if they do hear things, because there's a lot of stories out there about the committee and the work, please, again, back to Bill's point, please verify it with us. We're very open to doing that. And we've also, unfortunately, Markella or Miss Vanessa, we volunteered you every once in a while if they want to talk directly to the committee, because I've never been in a room where you haven't spoken your mind, and that's exactly what we need. So we're also putting out a lot of, we're doing a mailer to everybody on the north side and the neighborhoods along the northeast side of the river, so that people know that this project is going forward and they have an opportunity to do so. And then some folks on this committee have helped us with some media that we did yesterday, and I think you saw some newspaper articles, and Mr. Al McFarland was really kind enough to give us a lot of time on his radio and YouTube program, and Miss Markella was on that, and told basically said it the way it is. What's at stake here, and I think that's the time now is to tell people what's at stake here, and make sure that they know what they're voting for, and I'm hopeful the work that you are doing will be honored by the City Council in February when they review it.
Cool, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Ms. Hillary, you
Hi, yeah, I can do that now, and then we can then focus the rest of the meeting on the plan. I had also on there about the meeting schedule. We can take that at the end of the meeting if you prefer, once we kind of get through the discussion and see how it goes. So let me know if that sounds good. Eric did update you on some of the communications that have already been underway. So as you know, the draft plan for public comment was released on Saturday, and there were those updates from when you saw it last Wednesday that we noted. So that is out. The project website, I've tried to put this in emails to you and memos and stuff, but I'll just give a quick overview. So I just want to make sure that you guys have the information you need without overloading. So the project website went through a big update, and so the homepage has been updated, and there are different links. There's a link on the front page to the draft plan. So that's a new page on the project website, the draft coordinated plan page. That's where you'll see the project video that the city produced, and then the explanation, kind of the highlights again. And so some of those, some of those high points is what is included on the postcard mailer. You'll see that on the info flyer too, and then that's what's highlighted in the project video. And then there is the draft plan PDF itself, and then the link to the online survey. So the online survey is how we'll be collecting public comment. There are, I'm sorry, I don't recall right at this second, after all the back and forth on the survey, how many questions. I'm going to say roughly 6. But there are some, more focused questions, and then room for, more open comments, and then some additional questions to be submitted as well. And so that is open until January 15th. And then there's also the PDF of the plan is embedded in the website, so you can view it there if you want, or then download the PDF and view it that way as well. To promote all of this, I think, again, that was in my email to you on Saturday, and probably in my memo from last week, but it's the postcard mailer that's going out this week, by neighborhood. And then there's also online ads, which I had mentioned before, on social media. And then we've had some radio spots, or sorry, had one that was yesterday, with Insight on KFAI, so that was great. And then there was a media briefing yesterday morning. And then there will be on Anthony Taylor's show on KMOJ next Wednesday for his Minneapolis 360 show, talking about it. And again, when I say we, I mean it'll be someone from the city project team, probably, this, like, most is kind of this group of like representatives. So if there's someone from the learning tables like James or Devon or both, if Markella or Miss Vanessa in the co-chair roles, someone from the city project team, and then Brandon. And so you kind of get the whole picture of everyone that's involved and all the work that's been going on. The city is going to host 2 online open houses on the plan. The first one is next Tuesday at 5 p.m. We're busy updating. There's a Facebook event. I think that's being pushed out through the city social media channels. And then we're updating to make sure the link is out there. And just another reminder that if you sign up for email subscription updates through the city uses a service called Gov Delivery. So whenever you see reference to Gov Delivery, it's like on the website, if you sign up for updates, it's Gov Delivery provides that service, and they work with, local governments to do that. And so when there's a meeting, like these committee meetings, we send out through that list because, to make sure everyone has the info they need to call in or whatever it might be. So now that we're going to have some other events apart from committee meetings, which is pretty exciting, those will be sent out in the same way. And then the project website has an event calendar that's been updated too. And so you'll see the events there. The events, I had also included in my email to you, include the learning table. The December learning table is next Wednesday, the 16th. And then McKinley Neighborhood is hosting an online conversation on Sunday, the 20th. And then I believe we'll be at McKinley McKinley Neighborhood Organization Board meeting on Monday, the 21st. Actually tonight, during this meeting, my colleague Ratana, that's working on engagement for the project, is going to be at Victory Neighborhood. And I was at Botno with Ratana last night, virtually. And then we'll be at some other places. I'm sorry, I don't remember, but the event calendar is where you would find all of these things on the project website. And then Gov Delivery will probably be like on a weekly basis at this point to make sure all those events are getting out there. If you have any questions, please let me know. I can forward you, or you can find them on your own. The Star Tribune published an article from the media stuff yesterday. Twin Cities Business Magazine, I believe it's called, published one as well. And there's going to be, some other things happening too. So I'll make sure you can find out about those or know about those as you're interested. But otherwise, keep your eyes open. It's there's going to be some good stuff happening, meaning events wise. It's nice to be out there again. And so, let me know if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you so much. Mr. Bill, your hands up.
Yes, ma'am. Hillary, I just want to point out today, I had a long, in-depth conversation with Pete Rhodes, who owns Channel 937 Urban Works, which has been a long, over 20-year, only Black-owned channel, cable channel in the state, and one of a few across the country. He has offered his channel, which has over 90,000 listeners metro-wide, according to Arbitron rating services, which is such a rating. He's offered an opportunity to interview people and others to explain to the community because it's well watched there. For those who don't get the other notice or don't pay attention or they run out of the insights, this is another channel that we can use. And I want to, my suggestion would be after we complete the so-called public comment period would be a very good time to take some of those comments and use that vehicle as a way of communicating with the community using various CPC members. While I have nothing but all due respect for our two co-chairs, there's some other people here who remain too invisible and silent. And I want them to also have an opportunity for the community to see them speak to the work that they've done over this period of time. So I'll offer that up and I'll work with you, with the city, with you who can then work with the city's communications department because I just won't make a negative comment about them. I would rather work through you. That's it said like that.
Okay, yeah, let's keep it on a high note, you guys.
Yes, send me whatever info you want, Bill. That's great to know. Thank you.
Great job. So the next agenda item is unfinished business, updated draft coordinated plan for public comment. Coordinated plan 12/4/20 and 12/9 comparison chart concept plan to coordinated plan. Kelly, you want to touch on that or run that?
Sure, I can do that. It's a little tough when I was not here last week.
Okay. Well, is there anyone earmarked to do this part? Brian? Brandon?
This is Hillary. I was going to say perhaps, not to put them on the spot, but if Joanna or Brandon want to continue the conversation or kind of understand where we left it off,
right.
Just, yeah, let me know. I can't see everybody on the screen right now.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Go for it, Brandon.
Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Oh, yeah.
My computer is froze here, so I'm trying to load the materials back up.
Do you want me to share the screen?
Joanna's here.
Yeah, so I guess I do have two questions. Are there loose ends within the plan that we need to tie up? If so, what are they? So basically, like, what are the things that are not finalized that maybe have been cushioned within the plan, but not finalized by CPC?
Joanne?
Sure. Thank you, Ms. Vanessa. This is Joanna Hicks. I think, and this probably came right at the end of the last meeting. So I think we had a brief touch point on the community engagement process in terms of how we were going to be selecting the community entity. I think as we discussed, the intention is that at our January meeting, we'll be reviewing the RFQ from Brandon. And I know that at least we've received one comment, and I don't know if there were others who are looking to add comments on how to best go down that process. So that community engagement piece is one that it hasn't had a incredibly detailed conversation, but we had that piece, and we touched briefly, Ms. Markella, on our proposal that we start with a community benefits agreement with McKinley to allow us to have a bridge between the CPC and the selection of the community entity, and to also allow us the ability to, if that community entity that is chosen as a startup has the ability to kind of get up and running before we can kind of transition without losing time. So I think we discussed that, and that is in there, and those were added in the last plan. The things we had talked through, including the summary of community benefits and where they're located. So redevelopment agreement, ground lease, operating agreement for the venue, or community benefits agreement. And I don't know if people would like to talk through more of that. I think those are probably the two biggest pieces. There was an additional question raised by Alexis last week about traffic and sort of getting details about what's happening, with the next level of traffic and the AUR piece. And I think that the what Hillary will be proposing is that we take that up in January at the meeting, and because that's going to be, there's, I think, information that we would like to share with the committee, but it's probably beyond the level of detail that would be in the coordinated plan.
Okay. Anyone
Okay.
else?
So just to kind of, sorry, Miss Vanessa.
That's okay. I said anyone else?
So those are the only couple of things that you feel like aren't finalized?
I'm sorry, and then I missed a very big one. So on the housing side, which I think was probably the very biggest one, is that what we ended up writing, and I think we touched on this last week as well, but because you weren't here, I want to just reiterate this, is that what we did was we put in the implementation section the chart that Ms. Shannon requested, that tried to lay out everything that was happening in detail on phase 1, and then the options that were being considered for phase 2 in terms of the level of affordability and the density. Noting that all of the options that were in phase 2, when combined with the initial level of affordability in phase 1, met our originally stated goal of having a third across the entire site, and had different aspects of in terms of ground lease payments potentially. And so what we wrote was that the CPC had not come to consensus on that particular piece and left it out, but with the options that were being considered. So if the CPC wanted to make a recommendation at some point, we can do that. But right now it's in there as the CPC has not come to consensus yet.
Got you. And that's for the phase 2 housing, right?
Correct.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you for that.
You know, I keep hearing y'all saying a third. I thought sure those figures were 30, 30, 39. Were they not?
I think they were, I think it was
30, 30, 39 point something.
34. I think that the market one was 1% higher, but not 39.
Well, you 30%. 30 and 30 is 60. At least 40% left. So it got to be 35 point something, 39 something to come up with 100% of the housing.
It was 33, 33, and 34. Although I have not been getting a lot of sleep lately, so I'm not very, my math might be suspect at this point, but I think that's where we're going.
Hey, this is Hillary. I just wanted to reference everyone. It's page 83 of the updated draft plan for those that want to reference it. And that is, again, the December 4th draft coordinated plan document.
Awesome. Thank you.
And that it also notes that, again, like we discussed at committee, that phase 2 would then follow, what might be a more typical process around, if it's community process, but around the development. So if that decision is not made at this time, that there would be some additional process in the future as we get closer to phase 2. Brandon can correct me if that's wrong, but I think that's what the discussion at committee has been.
Yep, correct.
Gotcha. Cool.
And if I could just note one other thing, I think the other piece that wasn't on our last conversation was the forward that was added to the plan, where we also tried to be front and center about some of the issues that you have been raising. And I don't know if that is part of the conversation you'd like to have tonight to make sure that gets addressed as well.
There was one other note I had. This is Hillary. Since we're on this list, to talk maybe a little more at some point tonight about the community hub, and that part of implementation.
Can you go? Y'all stop me if I'm hogging up conversation. Can you go into more detail about what you mean as far as the community hub and implementation?
Yeah, I think there's some items from implementation that still need to be addressed. And I think that it wasn't at a place where it was ready to be part of the plan. And we've had discussions at committee about the hub, but I think, so I'll say Brandon and would definitely have more information about this than I do. But just kind of, what the process might look like. And if if there is some more information, again, the potential of it needs to be addressed in the final draft that goes to council again. So once the draft goes through public comment, there's opportunity to address comments or, make it into a final draft that would go to council.
Okay, Melissa, you're up.
I would also, in the meeting last week, towards the end of the meeting, I said I would come to this one and try to be able to present a motion that would be included into the coordinated plan. My motion is regarding the city of Minneapolis requesting the city assessors as well as Hennepin County to all come together to create and implement a property tax limitations that would directly affect Northside residents, similar to Proposition 13 that if you're aware of it out in California or not, it's just basically where all real property is established, base year values, and they're at a restricted rate of increase, no greater than a 2% a year. And there's a limit on assessed values of 1% every year, unless there is some sort of change in ownership or new construction would occur, then those properties would be assessed at a market rate. But in this situation, I'd like for something to be reviewed and implemented to protect homeowners and ensure that we can have development without displacement on the north side, protecting residents that's been here, before the market crash, for the tornado, that's still maintaining through all of, this crime and everything else we got going on over here, that nobody's being pushed out. So
Okay,
I'd
so
like to be, because it wasn't included in there, and I'd like to make an official motion for that.
Okay, so restate what your motion is, because that was a long statement you just made. So let's clear.
Sorry.
Let's
No, yeah,
concise. Let's
For sure.
concise what that motion is, and then can we get a second after she?
So the motion again is asking the city of Minneapolis, as well as the city assessor's office and Hennepin County, to come together and create and implement a property tax limitation that directly affects the north side, with Upper Harbor Terminal coming into place, that is similar to Proposition 13.
Okay, and can we get a second?
And I can say this piece too, to ensure development can happen without displacement.
Second.
The second, it gets some
Okay,
discussion.
so we have a motion and second. Ms. Hillary, will you take the roll call, please? Vote roll call.
Yes, Melissa Newman,
Aye.
Markella Smith,
Aye.
Mary Jo McGuire,
Aye.
Britt Howell,
Aye.
Grace Rude,
Aye.
Tanessa Green,
Aye.
Shannon Lemon,
Aye.
Makeda Zulu Gillespie,
Aye.
Jason Eisen,
Aye.
Vanessa Willis,
Aye.
Bill English,
Aye.
Courtney Schroeder.
Aye.
That is 12 in favor, none opposed, no abstentions. That motion passes.
Thank you. Are there any other questions, comments? If not, I think that was the last agenda item. Let me recheck.
My only other thing is, how are we gonna connect with creating the community benefits agreement with the developer, as well as the community benefits agreement with the venue? is that, I know the draft coordinated plan, is still ongoing and that stuff, but we need to come together to be able to ensure that the community benefits is in place. And if McKinley is going to be holding that.
So wouldn't that be in January when we come back?
It could be. I mean, all this while, is there some homework that we should be doing during this time frame? So we'll be preparing for that, but I just don't want it to get lost.
Right. I would say, I want to figure out, yes, McKinley is interested in doing that, right? There's meetings that'll be happening throughout December and January so that the McKinley board is actually like they can fully understand what that means to hold that community benefits agreement. My understanding from the McKinley board is that they do not want to take on something that we are not able to uphold, right? So we're getting all the background information on how do we hold the developers accountable? What does that look like, especially legally, if by chance that they're not, following through on the community benefits agreement. So just so that the committee knows that McKinley is working behind the scenes to understand what it means to hold that CBA, and make sure that we're in the place to actually uphold it.
Mr. English, your hand was up.
Yeah, just quickly to say about the CBA. The most critical aspect of the CBA is how is it enforced. And I used the term earlier in my comments. While I've never indicated any distrust in anyone associated with this project, there has to be ways in which we can verify. That's going to be critical because enforcement of CBAs across the country is often fallen flat on their face because there was no true enforcement mechanism. So that is a concern, and so I just don't want that off our members' head. And anyone's got any ideas, previous experience that was been successful, we need to hear from them during this cool down period. So we come back in January, we have some more information about it. That's done it. I've seen them drafted and not enforced over and over again. So I'm more curious about how we can enforce it.
Right, and that's what McKinley as a board is trying to understand. Exactly how do we enforce that? What does that actually look like?
Ms. Shannon, you had a question?
Yes, I think it is a two-parter. No three-part question today. But the two-part question is post-community input. And as we continue to sit with the plan, when we come back in January, how will we begin modifying and enhancing based on input and any additional thoughts that we have when we see things in a more finalized form? The second part is that there were some requests for information. One thing that comes to mind was around the $3 output. How does that measure to other alternatives or models? And how will it look if we had more information? And I think there were several more requests to go out to just bring back more information so that we could finalize some of our questions. I did not record those, but hoping that we did, and want to know how we will loop back and receive that input. So in January, we can finalize the plan.
Okay.
This is Hillary. Could I ask a follow-up to that when there's time?
Yes. You can go now. There's no one else up. You can go now.
I wanted to ask, so in the conversation last week's meeting with Dana on the line, when Bill was asking for the additional information about performance for the venue, it ended up being more of a discussion about what the sources of revenue are. And then Dana had offered to do a little research to get a pro forma from a similar venue, but it would be anonymous due to, just, I guess, proprietary information and competition in the market. So that's what I had as the outstanding. Does that sound, um, sorry, accurate or right? I don't know. I totally can't get words anymore.
Yeah, me neither. So we'll let Bill address it. Sir
Yeah.
Egley.
Okay, may I speak, Madam
Yes,
Chair?
Bill.
I raised that question not as an adversarial question, but as a partnership kind of question. The issue has become one of, we do not have any understanding, real understanding of all of the sources of revenue that can come. And I'll just give you some examples of some friends of mine who built a baseball stadium in St. Louis, where I grew up. East St. Louis, really, but St. Louis was nearby. And they said to me when they also built a kind of an outdoor venue, that the community benefits agreement, that the concerts often had sources of revenue that include sponsorship and promotional fees that were included in the CBA. Now, a very small percentage of it, but for me, every nickel, and the parking and all those other kinds of things, and the revenue from food sources or whatever, that we just want to know what are all of the sources of revenue without getting into a proprietary business, so that we can understand what's going on in that venue, because there's going to be an advisory committee to oversee it, and they need to be able to raise those kind of questions and track the revenue to make sure that we're getting a reasonable share of this city-owned venue.
Okay, so I think this conversation is addressed in page 3 of the meeting minutes, in case anyone is wondering or needs to reference
I have
it.
it here. It says
And
question. I have it here. It says question about more details on the profitability sources of revenue for the venue, in order to understand how the tickets fee related to the overall profitability. Dana answered First Avenue, noted that the $3 was the maximum, and that she could share an anonymous profit and loss statement for a similar venue. Uh, but those would be due to the competition would be anonymous. Mr. Franks noticed that there are 4 general buckets of revenue. Promotions used to be 50-50 between promoter and band, and now it is 90-10 band promoter, and the promoter takes most of the risk. The second is the food and beverage, which is generally the source of profit now, and which we have offered to the north side. There are the ticket fees, and then merchandise, auxiliary fees. Committee comment that don't need to see the proprietary information, that the explanation breakdown was helpful.
I think that raises the point. Raises the issue in a very, but I want to make sure that we don't leave out sponsorship, and that's why I wanted to see this breakdown of all of the sources of revenue, and again, no proprietary information, but where there is, because in some places the city gets the parking, like at the Timberwolves, get part of the parking fee or not. But or the football, I don't know that. But my point is, she understands all of the sources of revenue. We soon did that list out, whether it's anonymous or not, and now the committee can be informed. That's the point of it. So I just want to make sure that sponsorship is included as we go forward, and pencil it in, whatever you need to do.
Okay, are there any more discussions or questions or anything?
So the point of bringing up that specific example is that there were several other requests made during the last meeting, and just want to make sure that those are captured and that we have a way of hearing from the report outs during January as we reconcile the plan. So the first question was, how do we finalize the plan based on community input and any understanding that adjustments we want to make and any understanding we have now as we get these report outs? What's the strategy in January for us to be able to do that? And then separately, we need to know what those report out items are so that we're keeping track of them.
Right. I'll jump in and add to that, Ms. Shannon, that basically like what is our meeting plan after this? Because if we're not meeting for what, 6 weeks?
I can answer this if that's helpful.
Yes, and Hillary, before you answer the meeting plan, can I just want to make the friendly amendment that I'm just taking notes on things I'm hearing that might need to be in the January meeting timeframe, including, and I'll go through the minutes from last week to pull out any other requests to make sure we can review that in 5 minutes after you talk.
Does that sound good? If I talk about schedule?
You can talk about the schedule. I just wanted to clarify.
Oh, good. Okay, so the meeting date we had talked about for the CPC to come back together, the public comment period ends on January 15th. And what we had discussed is that staff, and that would be at this point, Ratana and me, would package the public comments received through the online survey. So I would recommend you check out the online survey questions. And then, of course, be reading through the draft plan, especially the updated sections or parts of the plan within the implementation section that we had noted. And so because some of those comments in the survey might provide more open-end, there's some open-ended comment portions of the survey, that's going to take, I think, potentially some time to categorize those answers. And so we've been talking about behind the scenes how that makes the most sense to do. Because I don't have the survey answers or results yet, I know that the raw data, let's say, from the survey, because it's in Smartsheet, the back end is like an Excel spreadsheet, more or less. And so we can show for the survey questions that have answers based on, the range of, select one, like very, satisfied to not at all satisfied or something of that sort, that those can be compiled or I guess, I don't know what I'm saying. So it's really good that this meeting is recorded. Never embarrassing at all. So those answers can be, I think, easily summarized. And then the open-ended comments, I think, would be read through. And this is something we've talked about at committee a little bit, is like what's happening throughout the public comment period. Is the committee seeing any of this stuff as we're going through it? Staff will be, I think, probably spending, I assume spending time on it as we're going through to make sure it's not obviously just like one, info dump right at the end, and then packaging those comments. And so, the way that have been thinking about it, which I haven't been able to think about it that much the last couple of weeks, is, some kind of staff report or memo to then, provide the summary with kind of like key topic areas or categories of the open comments, and then the summary of those other questions, so you can see how people are responding to those questions, and then can have some more focus around what people are saying. If there's a majority of comments, and we could make guesses as to what they might be, but I was really focused on this particular aspect of the plan. We should talk about that if a lot of people are pointing towards that. And then if that ends up being something the committee would want to consider, and I also would back that up and say, because of all the work that we've spent over the last year and a half, I think the purpose of all of us working together is not to have a plan. We haven't set out with a draft plan that we're going to scrap and start over. And I don't think you want to do that. I don't think that's the purpose of us working together. So the plan as it is, I think, is solid. And I would hope that people agree with that at this point. And that there is the potential to change some things, update some things, but it's not going to be wholesale changes like it was with the concept plan. If that's helpful, so let me know if that answered your question or didn't. But I think just kind of understanding what you might be getting on the back end, or once the public comment period is closed for the January 27th meeting, And so again, January 27th is the date we've been discussing as the CPC meeting after the public comment period ends, so that you can receive the public comments in your meeting packet, review them, and then come back and discuss and review the final draft plan. And then if you want to meet in January to address some of the other things we've been talking about, I would suggest January 6th as a potential good date. Putting that out there. I'm not saying it's in stone. That, you know, there are a couple of events planned for those first couple of weeks of January because the public comment period will still be open. And so, yeah, I'll stop there and see if there's further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Hillary. Courtney, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I do. Real quick. So the one piece is Hillary, that was helpful. Joanna, the question that Markella had asked you earlier about, there were some pieces I feel like in the coordinated plan that you guys had to kind of gloss over because you felt like the committee hadn't gotten completely to alignment. Those are the pieces, like if there's anything, and I don't think we want to meet or need to meet during that interim period, but I don't want to get back and have public comment and have to rehash any of these conversations if we know right now that there's still outstanding issues. And so I heard your explanation. Can you just raise it one more time and make sure we're really clear on what is anything outstanding that it doesn't feel like the committee's fully aligned on, so we can just make sure we know what it is and figure out how we're going to actually address it, either during when we incorporate public comments or not. But I don't want to lose that because I felt like there were small pieces in there that we haven't fully aligned on.
Yes, I can. And if Hillary, if you would be willing, I have most of this written down, but probably not in the order I'm going to say it in now that Courtney asked that specific question. So if you could help me remember this when I say it out loud. So I think the pieces that were not clarified that I feel like are vaguer than the committee has expressed they wanted to be is the recommendation on phase 2 affordability. The committee has said that they wanted to go specifically with a recommendation and write. So I think that's one. I think we provided the information that Ms. Shannon requested, and I think that's a piece. Number 2, on the community engagement selection process, there was I think a discussion last week about whether or not having McKinley nominate the group of people who would help the development team select the community entity was broad or expansive enough. And so I think that would be one where if we have a specific recommendation that we include other neighborhoods or to have another person added to that group and maybe McKinley works with a adjacent neighborhood. I think that's one that we could clarify and make a plan. I think there was a request from Tanessa to understand to get a little bit more detail on how we're going to move to this this task force that was going to who's going to help the development team on the workforce inclusion and comprehensive strategy, and sort of understanding what the timing of that and the makeup of that is. I think that potentially could be updated. That could be an update to the committee in January, so that it's clear. And then we had the RFQ process, making sure that the criteria for the RFQ were established correctly and that the committee had an opportunity to see the RFQ so that it is ready to go when we approve the process. I don't know that not necessarily has to happen. I think if we want to adjust the process for the selection, I think we should address that before the community engagement comes back. But I don't think we have to have the RFQ finalized necessarily in early January. I think that could be finalized in February. And then, so those were the big pieces. And then just if I have the floor, I will add on the additional requests that were made last week that I think we could address in some ways. So there was a specific request for information on pollution and impacts on the site and environmental site, which I think got addressed in the meeting by pointing people to the environmental reports that are linked to the website. But I think our takeaway was that we're going to try to add that into an FAQ frequently asked questions section where it said, if you're curious about environmental, here's where you would go. So that we have that response for other people who might be interested. There were questions about sort of the AUAR process and how it relates specifically to the next steps of land use plans. And so our proposal there would be to bring back Hillary Dvorak, who is the planner who has been shepherding this process, and she would be able, I think in January, to be able to speak to next steps with engagement around the AUAR and discuss a couple components that came up last week about noise and traffic, and I think get some executive summary from those like detailed studies out to the committee so that they could see those, because I think those were questions that were raised by both Mary and Alexis, and relate to some of the conversations that are happening at the CAC as well. And finally, I think Ms. Shannon, you had a request about looking for a style guide for the buildings, and that is another piece that Hillary Dvorak would want to speak to. I think from a planner perspective, because of all the overlapping guidances that relate to this particular site, including the shoreline district and the critical area overlay, their recommendation is that we don't want to create yet another style guide and the 2040 plan, that there are already three overlapping components. So I think she'd like to walk through that with you and try to understand what specific concerns there might be, and hopefully, I think she feels like this style guide should be addressed in the build form that is contained in the 2040 plan. But at least from my minutes last week, those were the sort of major requests that were made.
That is quite impressive. And I think on the style guide, we had some great comments when Public Works was in. I think the committee members had a lot of great thoughts, and community members certainly do, in terms of how we make the space welcoming, place keeping as opposed to place making. But that was a good list.
Yes, and actually to add on to that, we had a really good conversation today at our sort of internal site planning meeting about, part of what's so challenging about this is that this committee has gotten so deep into sort of what we're doing that we're sort of ahead of where the actual engineering and planning and all these things are. But what we talked about was that I think there are some value statements as it relates to the approach to traffic and to buildings that I think we could potentially express in a way that would ensure that is sort of contained within the coordinated plan sections on traffic and noise and things like that we could accommodate and then continue to allow the process to kind of move the way it needs to move. So that's one of the things we're working on.
Thank you. Melissa, you were next.
Hi. From the last meeting too, I think there at the very end, there was questions on ownership models and the townhome and what was programs as well, potential programs. And I think there was also conversation of land trusts. So that was another piece that I just wanted to bring up again. And I also like to ask about where in the concept plan does it reflect our request and motion for seed money, startup money from the city. I know we got budget things going on, but the seed money to go into the community entity portion right away before the venue is up and running. And that's all, my two pieces.
Okay, Mary, you're next.
I agree.
Can I get those answered?
This is Hillary. I would say real quickly that if we want to think about if the forward is a good place for that, we can discuss that now and then or go to Mary and then come back to that. But that's my initial reaction. So to think about.
And I would agree that I think that not only that one, but also the motion you just passed tonight, both be in the forward sort of front and center in the plan coming from the chair of the committee.
Okay, Ms.
So
Mary?
what's the difference? I'm confused. What's the forward plan versus the concept plan?
I'm sorry, the forward the forward of the concept plan, of the coordinated plan, which is page 4.
Let me get to it. Hold on. But yeah, I'll look research here on page 4 of the concept plan you said, and then
It's not currently there. I think what we were suggesting is that maybe that would be a good place to
That's
add.
where they will put it. That's where they will put it at, Melissa.
why
Let's
wasn't it not
put those
already
statements
there?
in the forward.
Why wasn't it already there when these are things that we made a motion and made recommendations for?
I would say, sorry, this is Hillary. So as we were pulling together the draft plan last week, when Markella wasn't feeling well, so Markella, you can speak to this yourself if you want, but I think that may not be the final draft of the forward to go into the final draft of the plan. It might need some more work. So that's my understanding. Markella can speak to that though, if that's accurate.
So
Right.
shouldn't that just be added to the forward and we're done with it?
Right. And what I would say, if there's any other points that you all feel need to be added to the forward, to email, because I'm not going to be able to take accurate notes from what you just said, Melissa. So what I would advise, if there are other points that you guys feel should be mentioned in the forward, to email that. Because it is hard to kind of put everything that we've done into like one page. So,
See, I mean, that's just where the frustration lies. We have all these conversations. This is stuff that's been said multiple times, multiple meetings. We've made motions on it. It's in meeting minutes. Why do we have to continue to go through tooth and nail on this? And to be going through different documents, to be trying to say, where is this point? Where is this important point? Where is this important point? To make sure that it's in there and that it's viewed with the city council. And that's the gray area of where people feel the lack of trust.
So, Miss Melissa, would you be willing to, those things that we voted on that's not in there, will you send those to Miss Hillary? Would you take on pulling those things out, sending them to Miss Hillary so that they can be put in the forward?
No, because
Why
I've
not?
done that already. I've
Okay,
spoken
Joanne.
numerous times.
All right.
And I don't feel that, I feel like things are being selected of what to be included in there and other things are overlooked. So
that should not be.
It's what everything that we're recommending, it should be included in here.
And if it was voted on, it should be in there.
Period.
Simple as that. Yeah.
And no, I don't want to have to go back and do additional stuff.
I have them. Can I just say I have them? I have all the meeting minutes, and those are an official record of the committee as well. So those motions are easy to find within those, especially since we have this, went through this whole minutes thing this summer about how they were terrible and all that stuff. So they're easy to find now. So I will pull that together. I'll share that with Markella because you guys have enough to do. So if I pull that together and share with Markella, whatever was an official motion, including the motion tonight, I'll make sure is there. In my perspective as staff, the reason I recommended the forward is that is the letter from the committee. And so if there are policy changes you want to see that aren't addressed for whatever reason in the plan, that's why I've recommended that be front and center. Again, as you were referencing this, Melissa, that then council will see it. Anyone that's reading it will see it. It is, right at the beginning, and especially if people aren't getting deep into the plan, then that's, so my 2 cents.
And if I could just add, Melissa, I just wanted to make sure you know that has that it was always intended to be part of the forward. That is not something we have been intentionally pulling out. It just in the universe that involved last week and people's human lives and not being able to get everything done, like that was what happened. So we noticed it and it needed to get addressed, and we wanted to talk through that. So I wanted you to know that it's not getting cherry picked out. It's just it needs to be there in the forward. So
Okay, Ms.
Sure.
Mary
And
has
so
been waiting to, Ms. Mary has been waiting to make her comment.
Thank you. So it's about the noise issue, and it came up last week and it was just brought up again. I made a careful review of the draft noise study, and it's very concerning to me because it says that the neighborhoods that are closest to the site, which are McKinley and Marshall Terrace, already have noise levels high above most of the areas of the city due to traffic and industry. And the way we're doing it right now, if I'm reading this correctly, the city allows a new entity to have a certain level higher than the ambient noise. And what really concerns me is these neighborhoods are already very noisy. There's times when I can't even hear myself think because of the trucks and the concrete trucks banging the concrete and all that. So they're allowed to go above the current level. McKinley deals with 94 and a bunch of other stuff. That's very concerning to me. So we don't want to ignore that, because once this venue goes in, it's a done deal. So apparently there are ways to mitigate with walls and special equipment, but I think I'm really nervous that we're going forward with this without a good answer for the noise issues. And it's a real quality of life issue. And think about the people who are going to buy houses there or rent there. They say that 94 is so noisy that you cannot have certain concerts at this venue, including classical music, because it's too noisy. So if the neighborhood is already that noisy and we're adding rock music, I don't want to listen to a concert every night from my house. And I'm sure other people don't either. So I just want to make sure this is I'm going to write a letter based on the draft study and send it out to everybody I can think of, that we need to do something about this before the venue is built. I'm not saying it can't be done, but this issue needs to be addressed. So,
Okay.
excuse me, Mary, you're referring to the prior study, right? Not the draft study that's being worked on now, correct? The one from the website? I can't hear you. Can you guys
I
hear
don't
me?
think she heard you, Joanne.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mary, I just wanted to clarify the draft study you're referring to is the prior draft study that was completed before the concept plan, correct?
it's the one that's posted on the website.
Correct. And so my proposal is that we would be bringing Hillary Dvorak, if this committee was willing to meet in early January, to talk through noise, traffic, and sort of the process and the preliminary information that we've got, which is in addition to what you're referring to, and so that we can talk through that.
Right. And with an expert, because I don't know what I'm talking about. I know how to read, and I think I'm reading it correctly, but I don't know how to measure for noise.
And I will say that what I had requested was an executive summary in layperson's terms, because I think that the study is detailed.
Yeah, it's pretty detailed.
Okay, Miss Hillary, did you still have a comment?
I'm good, thanks.
Miss Joanne, are you good? I believe she is. With that, Bill, I see you. Brandon had his hand up first. Brandon?
No, I think my question or my comment was answered. It was in regards to the forward. I was just going to state that I think it would be appropriate to. It's too much to even try to fit into the forward. To me, the forward is kind of like an introductory letter, and I think having a separate page of like specific CPC motions would be like right after the forward would be probably more beneficial.
Okay, what say you committee about that? Y'all like that?
I like that too. That's
I like that.
Do we motion and vote on that?
So moved.
So moved. I will
So
second
moved. I
that.
need a second.
I will second it.
Okay, can we have a vote roll call, Ms. Hillary, for having a separate page
With
for,
all of the
after the
motions listed.
forward with voted on motions or voted?
Yes. Melissa Newman,
We're
Aye.
doing roll call.
Markella Smith,
Aye.
Mary Jana McGuire,
Abstain?
Britt Howell,
Aye.
Grace Rude,
Aye.
Janessa Green,
I'm going to abstain. I had to step away for a moment.
okay, Shannon Lemon,
Aye.
Makeda Zulu Gillespie,
I think it's a great idea to have all of the motions on one page. Aye.
Jason Eisen,
Aye.
Vanessa Willis,
Aye.
Bill English,
Aye.
Courtney Schroeder.
Aye.
Can you give Tanessa the motions? Have an eye on the board or whatever instead of abstaining? If you don't mind reading it again, I would appreciate it.
No, I don't mind. Well, I don't have it
I can
fully
read
written
it.
down. Joanna,
We're-
thank you.
The motion was to add a separate page after the forward that includes all of the motions that were approved by the CPC.
Oh, okay, I can vote aye for that.
Okay, thanks. Just give me one quick second to tally. Okay, thanks, everybody. I have 11 in favor, none opposed, and one person abstained, so that motion passes.
Okay, Miss Joanne, do you still need a point of clarification?
Yes. And Hillary, this might be for you. I wanted to understand from a timing perspective, given that this is out for public comment, would we then we could work on that internally within the CPC and then include it in our final plan that goes forward at the end of January. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's right. We could have that definitely teed up or ready to go to committee when the public comment goes. So that would be, again, for the January 27th meeting packet to go out the week prior. If that sounds satisfactory.
So I will work on producing that and making sure it's in a proper form. And then are we still, is there still any work to be done on the forward? Because I originally had that one as one of our sort of to-dos, was that if people wanted to add things to the forward, is there anything you would like to add to the forward, or would you like to be able to also bring those points up in the forward in addition to having it in the motions? It's up to you.
No, I think the forward should be the letter from the committee and just basically what we want to say.
This is Hillary. If I might suggest, Markella, let me know if this sounds okay to you, that if people have additional comments that they send them to you, or if you want them to copy me and you, so then there's someone that can help keep track of them. Let me know.
Yeah, no, I would say email it just so that it's all in one place.
Yeah. Mr. Bill, you're up.
Yeah, thank you. I was going to address Ms. McGuire's comments about noise abatement. I think it is appropriate simply as the design for the amphitheater goes up to speak to the issue of noise abatement. I mean, it's a real issue, but it does need to be looked at and examined, and there are ways to mitigate noise. It's just they haven't done it before. I guarantee you, you can go to Denver, you can go out south, South Minneapolis, 35W. They put noise abatement walls all along 35W, where a little more upper middle class people live. So I can just assure you that could really be something that we should look at. I don't want to ignore it. The concert, everybody knows I'm for the amphitheater, but I also believe that people who live nearby need to have some noise abatement mitigation go on the plan so that it is not overlooked. And I'm
Thank-
sure the developers can do that.
Thank you, Mr. Bill. Makeda?
I just had a quick suggestion that maybe there's a timeline on when we get our comments into Markella and Hillary on the forward.
That I would like that, yeah.
Yeah, I would too. I would say by the 18th at the latest to give people a little time and to give us time to put it all together.
You had that date ready, Marcella.
Look, I hurried up and pulled up the calendar.
Is there forward? Is there something in the forward there now, or did I overlook it?
Yeah, it's page 4 of the
Okay,
December
I'll
4th
go back and look
draft.
at that. I'll go back and look at it again.
Thank you.
Okay.
So by the
18th when?
18th, please email 18th of December. If you have comments on the forward, please email them to myself and Hillary.
Okay.
By the 18th.
Okay. Any
So
other
we actually
questions
have
or
time to
comments?
work on it.
Okay, Ms. McKay.
Yeah,
Any other questions or comments?
Yeah,
We
Courtney.
have
Yeah.
stand up.
Courtney?
Yeah, so I got to bring it back, and I hate to do this, but I asked Joanne a question about what are all the things that are outstanding. Her list included about 8 things, and I think someone added 2 more. What we didn't get to is the plan to address them. And so I just want to make it clear: are we going to talk these through when we get public comments and address them all? Then I don't think we need to meet, but I didn't want to just put it all on the table and then disappear because we got some things we got to work through still. So I'm just bringing it up to say, what is our plan to get across the finish line for those items that we haven't finalized yet?
That's a good point.
So we got to wait till the end of January before we work on that? How about the middle of January, 15th, 16th, 18th?
So public comment ends on the 15th. So if we were going to meet, it would have to be either, it would make sense to be before or after, but we want time for the comments and stuff to get put together. Right. So I know for one, I love y'all, but I would love to not meet the rest of December. I think we all need a concrete break.
Hello.
However, if we were thinking of meeting in January, I would put out the date of the 6th of January as the date that we would meet. But I also just want to say that I would love to see the CPC members interact with these community engagement things that are going on, because it would help to have CPC input when there are people from the community making comments or having questions, especially the McKinley ones. Like, I will answer them as well as I can, but I need other voices, right? I need other people that are like, yes, this is what we voted on and this is what we put forward. So this is why.
Let me know those dates. Let me know the dates for the McKinley.
Okay.
Okay.
I planned on being at the McKinley as a resident over here as well, so I'll be there too.
Okay.
Miss Joanne is up for comment. You got a comment, Miss Joanne?
Don't forget Grace. She was up too.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Grace, do you want to go first?
Yeah, Grace. Grace is before Joanne. Courtney, are you done with your comment? Can you take your hand down?
Thank you. It's just a real small thing about
the comment, Brandon.
Just a real small thing about how we might get ready for our January 6th meeting is maybe, Joanna, if you could send out those 8 things that we need and that we need to discuss, we need to finalize, and maybe some ideas of documents. And then if people can start thinking about what they think about those things before we get there. I mean, obviously there has to be discussion, right? We want to hear other people's opinions, but at least personally, I think that's really useful to know what we're going to talk about and the issues raised. Think through it. We have time. I don't know. I just would like a list of those things before we go in there, so I can be prepared mentally, physically, spiritually prepared to discuss all that stuff. I think that'd be helpful. just a written list. I think I missed some.
I'm budging in line. Is there a way, I wrote them down, but I know that I probably did not capture everything because I'm not that quick a writer. However, can we get a list, like say maybe by the end of the week, and I hate to put anything on you guys, I know y'all have a lot. Can we get a list of the points that have not been completely finalized that we as a committee or small groups, whatever that looks like, can maybe meet separately and work on those? Is that
As long as it's not quorum.
Well, yeah, totally. We know.
I'm obligated to say that. Sorry, guys.
Yep, I know. But I'm just saying, if we had an actual list that we could work off of.
Can we designate the 6th of January to be that?
Excuse me.
Wait, Bill, wait. I mean, it don't have to, to try to, that we could try to start doing that around the beginning or the middle of January. But at the grace was Joanne for a comment.
So I think what I was gonna, yes, I can get you a list. I think my question is, number one, are there any items that are easy wins that we could just make a decision on tonight? Like things like, if we just added another person to the selection committee from outside McKinley and someone could tell me what the neighborhood is, or if it's 2 people, could we add that and just, make those kind of quick and easy suggestions, number one. And then the second piece would be, I think on these harder questions, and I'm thinking specifically about the housing question, I feel like there's a pivot point that we kind of just need to make a decision about, which is we've provided additional information. I think I would like to hear from Ms. Shannon whether or not that chart reflects what she was hoping to have. And then secondly, do we feel like we need to get to a decision? Because I think we could spend another 3 hours just talking about it. And I think at this point, I'm not sure what other information, I don't know the best way to get to that answer. And so I think the question is, does the committee still want to have a recommendation? And if so, do you have the information, and are we just at a point where you're just going to make some votes or not votes? I just am not sure what other. I can give you information on a list of what the issues are, but I'm not sure that more information is forthcoming on that. So I think we just need some decisions on how you want to handle that.
Okay, Miss Mary, you're up next.
Oops. I just want to note that January 6th is Eastern Orthodox Christmas.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if that's a good day to have a meeting.
Okay.
I was gonna.
Does anybody here celebrate Eastern Orthodox Christmas?
Not here.
You do. Oh, okay. Well, I mean, you brought it up, but I wasn't sure if you were,
yeah.
sometimes.
Okay.
Well, okay, Miss Hillary, you have a question?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mary, were you done?
I was just going to say a lot of the community does celebrate it, so it's just one of those things.
I do have a question, and I'll just a quick note. So the committee calendar goes by city council calendar or the city calendar. It's not marked as a holiday on the calendar, so I don't know how those are decided exactly, but it would be, we could have a committee meeting on that date if the committee so chose. So we can keep talking about that. My question was around events. Do you, I don't want to clutter your calendar. I would say there are just a handful of events that we're talking about for December and January, meaning those outreach and engagement events. Would it be helpful to you all if I sent you calendar invites to those so you have them on the calendar and you don't have to accept, but just so that, is that a helpful way to track them? Let me know.
I'll accept it. I'll accept one from you. I'll accept that.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep,
it's probably
sounds
looking
good.
like potentially five calendar things between December and January. So I'll get those out by the end of the week.
Okay. Mr. Bill, you're next.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Well, long before Mary brought up the holiday, I had no idea of that as a holiday. And typically, I like to respect specific holidays. I was opposed to the 6th anyway. Just 6 is too soon after New Year's. And there's a lot of work that everybody has the first week after the holidays piled up on their desk. So it don't have to be, it could be the second week in January.
Miss Shannon is suggesting a week later.
That would work for me. That would work for me.
What say you, committee? How does that look for everybody else? A week after the 6th. So 6 and 7 is the 13th. That'd be like the 13th or the 14th.
It'd be the 13th if we're doing Wednesday.
It will be Wednesday the 13th. So can we get a motion in a second that the next meeting be the 13th of January then?
So moved.
So moved. Second. Second. Can we have a roll call, Miss Hillary?
Yes, you can. Melissa Newman.
Aye.
Markella Smith.
Aye.
Mary Jammin McGuire.
Aye.
Britt Howell.
Aye.
Grace Rude.
Aye.
Vanessa Green. I'll circle back. Shannon Lemon.
Aye.
Makeda Zulu Gillespie.
Aye.
Jason Eisen.
Aye.
Vanessa Willis.
Aye.
Bill English.
Aye.
Courtney Schroeder.
Aye.
Okay, I'll circle back up to see if Tanessa Green. Okay, she may have stepped away. That is 11 in favor, none opposed. So January 13th.
I'm here. I was
Amen.
that's it.
And at that,
Okay, thank you. Sorry, can I?
Who's talking?
I was trying to record Tanessa's vote. It was,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Tanessa, were you in favor?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. That's 12 in favor, none opposed. January 13th, 2021, people, is the next meeting date.
Amen.
Thank you, Jesus.
Hold on,
I love y'all, but that's 4 weeks.
I love you. That's all. That's all of the agenda items. So can we call this meeting adjourned?
Wait, I'm sorry. I'm not. I
What?
want to hear from Ms. Shannon about the information presented last week. Was that sufficient as far
Yes,
as the?
so it is page 84, correct?
I think page 83 was specific to phase 2 and addresses the UHT CPC discussion.
So this is very helpful. The remaining question is now, what do we do with it? Are we going to resolve or are we going to provide guidance? We're going to vote or are we going to provide guidance? But we can talk about that on the 13th.
Well, I'm sorry, this is Joanna. May I have an opportunity to talk for a second? I want to make sure that we're trying to establish the agenda for what we're going to do on the 13th. So there's some discussion about, are we having a conversation about AUAR and public engagement and how the sort of noise and traffic gets handled outside of the CPC process and what will happen. So I think, so that could either happen in a conversation or that could happen in a written document that we send to you, if that would be preferred.
Or it could be a separate event. It doesn't need to be a committee meeting. It could be another online conversation. I just wanted to note that.
I guess I'm bringing that up because I feel like if we have that conversation, I can imagine that's going to take the bulk of the meeting, and therefore it will be difficult to re-engage in a detailed voting conversation about housing based on where we kind of landed last time. So,
excuse me.
I think the agenda items should be those that we have left open that we haven't finished, those 8 items. I think that's where we should start with on that day, because we'll still be waiting for the public comments won't be done until the 15th. So you'll still have that week after for us to get your summary from that. So I think that should be the first thing we should prioritize, have on our agenda items, is those things that we said we still need to tackle.
To,
Yes, Bill.
to make an assumption that the housing discussion is something we cannot agree at. And I understand we've been quite argumentative, if you want to use that term. But we have waded through it, and we've ultimately came to decisions. So I'm not ready to make an assumption that we can't have a housing discussion on phase 2 without coming to a vote or consensus or some recommendations for whoever does phase 2. So I don't think there's necessarily a long, if we're going to have a long meeting anyway, and Mr. Vanessa made another point, but I'm not ready to say we can't reach agreement. Most of us have a pretty good idea of a third, whatever that 30, that last third go, that fourth point adds, doesn't make any much difference, 1%. So we've already agreed upon that. The real question becomes of the idea of, since all of the land's going to be rented, is there a land trust? And is there a land trust that can accommodate ADOS people, for lack of a better term? And I think we need to do some investigation, because I hear there are some people formulating that with an existing land trust, whether it's common bond or whatever. I'm not sure which one it is, but they're creating this land trust model that will be able to allow people to own their homes, and maybe the land upon it. But that's a different decision. So I don't think that we can't necessarily get through a tough discussion. We've gotten through before, and if we have to, we'll just grind through it and get a decision made.
Thank you. We have a quick comment from Grace.
I was just wondering if, because it does seem like we have a lot of stuff on our plate for the 18th, if we wanted to follow Joanna's suggestion on if there's like a couple things we can vote about in the next like 10 minutes to just like clear those for that, or if we were not, because I know there's just a couple of things that she thought maybe we could, but if we're not in the mood for that, that's okay. I just wanted to throw it out there. That might clear up the agenda for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Well,
Melissa?
My comment is regarding community engagement. I know we're all super busy, and Hillary did that awesome letter last week breaking all down the community engagement pieces, but it would be nice if you could send a friendly reminder a couple of days before an event, or at least a day before the event, to say that this is coming up, and allow opportunity for CPC members to be there when there's, different interviews or whatever.
Okay, Miss Melissa, Miss Melissa, Hillary already said she's going to email us the calendar of all of those dates, and you'll have an opportunity to say yay, maybe, no on all of those things already. That's been established, sweetheart.
For sure. So a separate email than the one we've already
Yeah,
received?
she's going to send, like she sent out to see if asked us if we're going to make the meeting, yes, maybe, no. She said she will send that out for each one of those events to us tonight already.
Yeah, there was like a KFAI thing yesterday that I didn't know anything about until I got some in a text
you guys,
real quick.
I have another meeting that started at 6 o'clock. So are you guys trying to go back and vote on some stuff tonight? If not, and then my twins' birthday is tonight. We're having a virtual party on Zoom. So we've covered all the agenda items, people.
Right. So sorry, Vanessa. Those are important.
Hold on, it's 6:46. What say you? I'm taking a consensus here. Yes, Mr. Mann.
She's muted.
I say we vote on some easy items and stay until about 7:30. I think we agreed to meet until 7:30 or 8.
Y'all will be here to 7:30 by yourself tonight, baby.
Yes, you sure are.
Yeah, Miss Vanessa, that's fine. If you wanna,
I'm gonna be gone. So I'm gonna dot out and let y'all finish doing what y'all want to do.
Okay, thank you, Miss Vanessa.
Okay, God bless you. I love you. It's good to be back and alive.
Hey.
Amen.
Bye.
Amen.
So my consensus is our next meeting will be the 13th of January, right?
Right.
Yes.
And what are you guys finna vote on now?
I believe
Don't
it.
worry about that. Go to your party.
Yep.
Because if it's something I
We
need
will
to make a
send-
vote, I'm gonna make my vote. What
Well,
is
I would like to have some comments about the phase 2 housing. I think that's something really important that we could maybe hash out some right now.
and what are you having a disagreement about on the phase 2 housing?
The
Yeah, let's not
affordability.
hash it out. Let's just vote on it.
Right. So does anyone look? I'm trying to get my thoughts together, y'all.
If you want, I can direct you to the
Yes,
correct pages in the plan, which I am
Just
spinning
read it.
through immediately. So it starts on page 83 of the plan, which was the housing affordability strategy. And the place where we were not able to where we did not get a vote specifically was having clarity on the affordability mix for parcel 1A, which would be the senior housing, essentially the option between, which is shown on page 84. So for 1A, we had either a market rate senior co-op, attainable senior rental, or a mixed income senior rental option. And that those were 3 options for parcel 1A that we laid out in the chart that had both affordability as well as estimated ground lease payments that would go back into our proposed fund that would benefit North Minneapolis anti-displacement and wealth creation initiatives. That's our recommendation to your recommendation to the council. And then the second option was options for parcel 7A, which was market rate high density, which was the big tall building, which had a limited amount of affordable units in there, but the highest amount of ground lease payments. The market rate medium density, meaning more of a wood construction building, so a fewer number of units. And then a mixed income medium density, similar size building, but a more affordable mix. And so we had some mix and match discussions about those. So what we presented was some options so that people could create scenarios. As a reminder, the only vote that was held at that meeting was a motion to have the senior rental be affordable or attainable, sort of the green one in the middle of 1A, and then having a affordable option for 7A, and that was voted down. I think that's the summary of where we are. Is that correct?
Yep. So, yes.
Am I responding to? Am I allowed?
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. English.
I want to go to parcel 7, which is the, is that the
Hey, that's the high density building.
market rate, right?
Yep.
And as I recall Brandon saying that the market rate has a minimum of 10% affordable. Is that right, Brandon, or something like that?
Yeah. Sorry, can I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
I think we would be proposing the, 92% market rate, 8% affordable, which is in line with the inclusionary zoning policy.
And it seems to me, given what we are going to do with the senior housing, making almost none of it market rate, I think that's a reasonable trade-off so that we could approve the senior housing and parcel 7. For me, that's a reasonable trade-off. If we want to end up, that's going to get us closer to the third that we really wanted. As I calculate, my math is not the best, but it is fairly good. So that's the way I see it.
Right. And I will also just piggyback off of that. And when we start talking about, I'm all for the ground lease payments, right? Because that goes directly into displacement in programs within North Minneapolis. Like that option, the market rate high density, has over 99 years, $32 million that's circulating back into the community. So that's a huge difference in money that's going back into the community over time. That means my great grandkids in 99 years will still have this money circulating into the community. Like, that's dope. So that's always been my push, is that we have to think, one, just like Mr. English said, having this be like a third, like we want, right? But also, if we have that high density market rate, that's a ton of money going into the community, y'all. And I don't know where we are with comments. Okay. I don't know where we are. Tanessa, I see your comment. Joanna, did you have a comment, or did you okay, gotcha. Miss Tanessa?
I think that we keep hitting the issues that have been raised about this market rate building against the land, the lease payments, and I don't think that that's really a fair representation of the issues. It's not an either or issue. It's really about, to me, I just think about it in terms of, you know, we're doing all these other things to make sure that that there's diversity, economic diversity, ethnic diversity throughout this development, but we're really just focusing on the money in terms of the market rate building, and we're not talking about who's going to be living there. And I think about how I would feel. Like, I moved into this neighborhood because I like, you know, for diversity that I live in. And I think about how I would feel if there was a high-rise building full of affluent white people moving next to me. And so that's the issue for me, is who is going to live there. And I think, you know, we talked about the fact that we have a lot less control over that when we're talking about market rate housing. So that's what my concern is that we're going to impose gentrification on this development, you know, a few years into it. And it's going to be the same issue that we're dealing with in North Minneapolis already, you know, and I don't feel like we have mitigated those concerns. And it's not about whether or not, I don't oppose the lease payments. I'm all for that. I don't think that we need to pit those issues against each other anymore. But how do we address who lives in that high rise? And if you don't address it now, then we can pretty much assume what it's going to look like. And that's my
make that assumption.
No, and I think assuming is wrong. We've talked about how we're going to target people who look like us to live there. We've talked about this. Ms. Makeda passed a motion not the last meeting, but the meeting before, about making sure that there are realtors that have experience getting people that look like us into these properties. So we've started to do the work to make sure that there are people who look like us. There's Black folks in that building. So we can't keep assuming that it's going to be nothing but white. At some point, we have to trust that actually, I'm not sorry. We have to trust that the work that we've been doing and the things that we put into motion is going to work. And we're going to get people that look like us in that building.
But that doesn't get it. And I know that doesn't, because there's nothing around that supports that long term. And there's no agreements, there's no commitments, you know, and it actually doesn't even really guarantee anything. We did the same thing, you know, we were doing the same thing at Hennepin County, you know, and trying to, you know, hire Black real estate realtors to sell, you know, some of our tax forfeited properties. It doesn't always work that way. So I don't see that as the solution. And it's not about assumptions. I mean, all you have to do is look around you to see how it works when there's nothing else in place to prevent it happening. Every new development in this city, almost all new development, especially market rate housing, we're not in those spaces, you know, so it's not I don't think that the issue has been settled by that solution. I think that's one potential solution, but it doesn't really guarantee anything long term at all.
If any of this again, Hillary, I know that you have a comment, and then Mr. English. I just want to say, is any of this guaranteed? None of this is guaranteed, right? We're doing this work, and we're trusting that the developers, the city, like we're trying to put things in place to push.
So Markella, I don't agree with you. I don't think that that's what we're doing at all. We're not trusting the city to do a darn thing. We're actually forcing the city to give us commitments and agreements on a lot of things. We have already resolved that we don't trust the city and the developer and the development partners to just do these things on their own. We're actually asking for firm commitments on a lot of things, from the tax, increases that Melissa's been asking for, since the beginning of this project. I mean, we're asking for firm commitments on certain things. And I don't think that it's unrealistic to think that if we don't, so you have a market rate building, you have affluent people living in that building, and you have, even if it weren't about race, even if it was just about economics, there's the potential for there to be a unbalanced power dynamic there, and with the people that are already there that are in the affordable housing part of it. And I don't understand why that's not important to address, along with all of these other issues that we are fighting for. So I don't think that we're trusting the city to do anything. We're demanding things and we've been demanding commitments all along the way, and those commitments are, we've asking for those things to be a part of the plan, or we're asking for those to be in agreements. So I guess I disagree.
And we should also
have this issue either. There was actually a few other members that were concerned about it. So my concern is not about whether or not we have market rate housing. It's not about whether or not we should do the deal that brings in the most revenue to the community. It's not about that. It's really about who lives in that space.
And you also should hold them accountable for entering into phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, because they'll do phase 1 and won't do nothing else and let the clock run out and don't do nothing else. So you should also have something in place to ensure that all of the phases are done, and that none of the monies that's earmarked for this project be spent on any other communities other than that project, because they have done that before.
Mr. English, I see your hand. Hillary, did you want to make a comment real quick before Mr. English?
My only comment you addressed, Markella, and so I just provided the actual motion from November 18th. So I'll read it since I had put it in the chat, and it's in the meeting minutes from the 18th. The motion was, we recommend that United Properties contract with an ADOS realtor to help fill the rental and ownership housing with a record of, and I quote, because there's quotation marks around it, over outreaching people who have been displaced.
Right.
So that was the motion that was approved on the 18th.
And it passed. Mr. English?
There are a couple of things here that I think that we need to take into consideration. First of all, it's never about trust. It's always about verify. And I said that earlier. Number one. Number two, I am not ready. I think a market, first of all, there's 2 blocks of market rate housing underdeveloped right now, or being developed, called Satori. It's being developed on West Broadway right now. They're starting soon, of all market rate. Now I am really, my concern is 2 things. I want this place to look like North Minneapolis. But I'm not ready to, I know that if I was going to stay in the state at my age, I would want to live I would love to live in a place like that. Now, I wouldn't be considered low income, but you don't want to concentrate property anymore. Right now, North Minneapolis has the highest amount of affordable housing in the city, the highest amount in the city. They're getting ready to build 163 affordable units on the off-Broadway pizza site against the will of the community. Against the will, 163 units, they even increased the height. That's already been approved by the city council. Guess who's gonna be moving in there? I can guarantee you. The city has been sued once successfully for concentrating property and rates. It was called the Holman lawsuit. While the outcomes were somewhat different, it is a mixed-use housing development with some moderate success. The point I'm simply making is, it's not about trust. We are saying a market rate housing would not attract anybody. I hope we're not saying that, would not attract anyone that's Black. We already said that 8% of it will be low-income people. Low-income people. So I really do think it's not about trust. It is about verify. We do need to pay attention to it, but I'm not looking for a concentration of more poverty in one place. And we already got a third affordable, and we got a third attainable, which is under 50%, about 50% AMI.
Right.
Third and 30% AMI. So we really have to be very careful in some of our assumptions. And I mean, no disrespect to anybody's point of view, but I know this, is that it has never been neither North or South Minneapolis, with the exception of the restrictive covenant, there's never been all of one kind. There's never been. It's all been.
Mr. Cater's hand is up.
Yeah, and I see Melissa has a comment.
Offer that as a comment, but it's not about trust. It's about verifying.
Thank you, Mr. English. Miss Melissa, I'm sorry.
My question is regarding 7A as well, and kind of going off Tanessa. Tanessa, what do you feel would be a comparable ratio? And to Brandon, is there, to meet with the inclusionary zoning from the city, is there another alternative ratio for that building besides the 90-10? If we were to do, 30-70, to get a few more, is there a profitable compromise somewhere in there?
So Melissa, can I answer the first part of your question, which was directed at? I actually am not proposing that we make it affordable. That's never been my proposal. My concern is that we need to make sure that that space is that building is diverse. And I've never heard anybody say anything about how we go about that. Hiring back realtors does not get us there. I already know that doesn't work. It can be one part of the solution, but it's not going to get us there. And so I don't have an issue with this being a market rate building. That is not the issue. It's about the fact that it's a high density building, and we are talking about it could potentially be another gentrification issue for that particular community.
Well, maybe then we need to set parameters on how we are going to create this path of success of housing resources for these people that come. What does it mean to be eligible, as far as background? How are we determining where they came from, where they are, where they're going? They're before the old Northsiders coming back, maybe that particular path. And I don't know if we're stepping on toes of the community entity, but are we going back to that of the path of this resource path?
But I think we've brought this. I think it's just making a motion. We've said all this, right? We've said that we're targeting people who used to live here that got displaced by the tornado. We've said all this. And so this is when it comes down to, okay, we've said it. Let's make an official motion that these are the things that we want you to do in order to reach people that we want in that building. Like, we keep having this conversation. If it's not an issue with having the market rate, and it's about who is in there, right? That's what I'm hearing. It's the market rate is not the issue. It's just, how do we get people in there that look like us? Well, then we just need to set that and have it be a motion. that this is what we want. This is how we want you to reach people. Even in the meeting with the attorney this afternoon, it was, we can't specifically say only Black people can live in that building. We cannot say that, right? However, there is ways that we can go around that. How they're marketing, what avenues are they marketing? Are they putting it in the Star Tribune, or are they going through Insight News? Are they going through North News? Are they going through our publications to reach people, or are they going through I'm not sorry. Are they going through the white publications? Right. So we need to make that motion, y'all. We can't keep beating around the bush and having these same conversations. If this is what y'all want to see, speak that and make a motion, and let's pass it. It's obviously a passionate place that we're in, right? Where we want to see our people within this development period. How do we do that, y'all? Map it out and let's get a motion on the table.
Well, I made an assumption that was a mistake. I thought Tanessa was talking about affordable. I did not realize she was not talking about, I thought she was making a remark about more affordable or attainable within that. And attainable is in the 50, 60% AMI. That's called workforce housing. The market rate thing is not going to get any public subsidy. I can probably bet on that. And so if it doesn't get public subsidy, the bill, then the rates are going to be comparable with who can pay. But I'm not prepared to say that it should not be targeted at African ADOS people. And there are ways, a specific way of targeting them. It should be marketed to them. And it could be recruiting. I mean, there's all sorts of ways of promoting. We know there are ways in which we know that. It's never going to be a guarantee that you're going to get it. Because there's a whole lot of people right now, live it, like it or love it. There's a whole lot of people want to get out of North Minneapolis because they're tired of hearing the bullets all night. And they want to leave. They'll go anywhere. Some of them said, I'm going to Brooklyn Park. I don't know if they're going to any place better, but there ain't no gunshots going out there every night. So we really have an issue of concern, and it is not about none of us opposing each other. We all want the same goal. Right. Mixed housing that is targeted a majority of people who look like us because we've been historically discriminated against. So I apologize to my colleague for making an assumption about what she meant. And I apologize to her publicly because I thought she meant something else. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
I've got Miss Makeda that needs to make a comment. Miss Joanna wants to make a comment. And Miss Joanna, when you make your comment, can you also talk about the preference policy the city has in place? Thank you. Miss Makeda.
I just wanted to make a short comment to say that I didn't hear what I heard from Tanessa, and the benefit of having this committee be so diverse with different talents and different experiences is that the details is where we get in trouble, and so I know it's not the easy answer to say a third, and I think Tanessa is just trying to, well, she knows what she's trying to do, but for me, I take it as she's trying to make sure that we don't say yes to something and then we're really frustrated, 5 years from now when we see it look way different from what we had planned. And so I know it's hard. I think it's hard because we don't have the answer. Like it's not right there for us to, we can't predict it. So that makes us passionate and a little frustrated, but that's okay. So I just want to say I wanted to say that.
Right. Miss Joanna.
Thank you. So I'm wondering if there's a way, we haven't talked about this in a very long time, but the city preference policy that the city passed for ownership, and I think is, I believe, contemplating and planning on passing in 2021 for rental housing. And if they've done it already, I'm sorry, I missed that. But I'm wondering if there's a possibility that we could utilize that preference policy, which I think does address a lot of the displacement concerns and prioritization that this committee has been bringing up, and whether or not we would be able to make a recommendation that like 50% of the building could be subject to that preference policy, which for 7A, so that we would have a mechanism by which to address that. potentially. So that was a preference policy that I can try to put in the chat if I can make my computer work well, but it's on the LIM system.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask the question. With this preference policy, that means we can preference that there are African Americans in this building. Like, what can we specifically preference?
I feel like you're going to get me into a situation that I don't feel comfortable actually saying. I think that I believe that when we had the presentation in late 2019, I want to say that there was a very tight and detailed process in terms of forming this to be able to identify this. And Eric, you might be able to speak to this a little bit better than me, and I would love
Eric
it.
has his hands up. Eric and Hillary both have a comment. So I'm wondering if they can address it.
Okay, we'll get you the preference policy if you don't have it, but it is not race specific. It is people who've been displaced from either the location, and there's a geographic area, displaced by foreclosure crisis or displacement area pressures or the tornado, and 50% of the city's home ownership program is preference to those folks. So, and to Joanna's point, we have not completed the rental housing one. So it's just the ownership piece that's been passed by the city council. We'll get that information. I'm a little tired at this moment in time to be precise about that, but we'll get it for you.
Okay, so go ahead.
No, Hillary, my quick comment was, again, on the short turnaround, I only grabbed the draft policy from the August 12th meeting that we had. So our August 12th committee meeting, we had a presentation about this from Erica Coleman with CPED housing. So there's the draft policy. I dropped into the chat. Again, this is the August 12th meeting, so refer to the project website for the meeting materials, anyone that's listening. And then also at that same time, Erica had provided the associated changes to all the Minneapolis Homes programs for ownership assistance, et cetera. So those are the two PDFs I dropped in the chat. But again, that is the draft policy, not the final. So we'll make sure to get that to you. I think we had updated you verbally at one point, maybe in the city update in one of these meetings, that the community preference policy had been approved.
Gotcha. All right, y'all. I want to go ahead and make a motion that I'm going to make two. I'm going to start with this preference policy, because let's face it, anyone, like, we know that people who have been displaced from the tornado were Northsiders, and probably mostly Black. And then we also know that when it comes to the foreclosure crisis, our people were affected the most, right? Yep. So that to me is a concrete way that we can start making sure that we're bringing people back into North who have been here before. So I make the recommendation that the preference policy be applied to all of the housing units within this development, with the understanding that the rental part has not been passed yet, but that is being talked about.
I could second that motion.
All right, motion and a second. Is there any other discussion or questions?
Yeah, can someone clarify? So your point is the preference policy that we've seen. Your motion is you want to have that preference policy applied to all housing options in phase 1 and 2.
Yep. And the reason being,
all housing parcels.
Right. And the reason being, though, is that it would help them when we talk about targeting, right? We talk about targeting the people who we want to live there. So with that housing policy, from my understanding, and maybe this isn't correct, but I would feel like they would target those people who have been displaced already. So I'm pretty sure there's a list of people who have been foreclosed on, you know what I mean? So it's like pulling them back in and saying, hey, there's a new development. Do you want to move back to North Minneapolis within this development?
Any other unintended consequences or implications? The point is, I'm trying to, you're out of my realm of understanding, so I just want to make sure I know if there's any other unintended consequences or things that would influence how I think about that, or is it as simple as just applying the preference policy?
Courtney came across a little muffled. I'd like to hear me say that. Did he sound muffled to you all?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question is, I'm trying to, it'd be helpful to know any unintended consequences or nuance to applying the preference policy that I just, because in theory, I see what you're saying and I get it, but I'm also not close enough to the preference policy to know if there's something in there that might create an unintended consequence. If there's another point in there that would make me rethink where my head's at.
Right. So I guess I want to, so it's 50%, right? So there's still a whole nother 50% that wouldn't fall under this preference policy that we could, or the developers or whoever could intentionally target other people that are outside of that preference policy. I want to make sure I'm understanding that correct as well. And I don't know, Joanna or Eric. Yep, go ahead, Eric. I see your hand.
Yeah. So I found the preference policy, but the committee could suggest that there'd be a preference policy for the housing that's outside of what the city put, because you'll see that's a larger, it's about for homeownership programs, but we could entertain a preference policy for
rental.
This coordinated plan for the rental. Yes.
So that would mean essentially using the same concept of the preference plan for this development.
Yeah, I think what I'd like to do is talk to our colleagues in housing and how to write it, because this is the one that has been approved that I put in the link in the chat is for homeownership, and I would like to. But there'd naturally be like a cap about you could put a preference on about 50% of the unit.
Right.
All right. I hate to be this person, but
so we might have to table this motion.
We may have to.
Well, it's included in the coordinated plan. So if you Google preference policy on page 28, there's a line that says we will comply and implement with the city's housing preference policy for ownership and rental housing to be adopted.
So it's there.
So it's in there.
Yeah, the rental housing has not been adopted yet. And the policies that we have are for the city's policies, they're for subsidized units. So those that receive housing trust funds, other low-income housing tax credits, it's possible to expand that preference to unsubsidized as well, and that'd be the will of the committee here and talking with Brandon. But our city policies is only for things that have city money in it, or some sort of subsidy. So the market rate units, for example, would not apply.
But if we make this motion, we could make it apply to that market rate.
Yeah, I talked to Brandon and it could apply. But I think, I don't want to negotiate Brandon's position, but I think that that's what I've heard from this committee since the beginning is trying to find preferences to get people from the north side or who have been displaced some access to this. And it's not just for the to the unsubsidized, the quote unquote affordable ones, the attainable ones as well. So
right.
Brandon, do you want to speak to that? I see your hand, Ms. Tanessa. Can Brandon speak to this real quick?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, the only thing I'm just trying to think through here is what I mean, it's with the housing preference policy, there's specific criteria around like income eligibility, the household sizes. You can't, if it's a 3-bedroom, you need to use all 3 bedrooms. I'm just trying to think of how we create criteria around a, unrestricted housing unit. If somebody shows up and says, I can pay to live there, we have to come up with some criteria as to why they would be disqualified. Otherwise that would, I'm just I don't know how to
Right.
do that for.
Couldn't it be something as simple as like their housing history? Did they live here during the foreclosure crisis? Did they get displaced during the tornado? That kind of like, couldn't those be some of the criteria that are put in place for 50% of the units?
I think so. Yeah, I would just want to verify this as well, that we're not getting outside the bounds of something we're not allowed to do legally. I don't want to be that guy either, but
Fair Housing Act.
right.
Right. Tanessa.
So, yeah, it sounds like we're going to need to table this discussion. I think that was always my concern, is that with the market rate housing, there just really isn't really very many options for us to regulate, who's there. And the other thing that I just am reminded of is that on the home ownership side, we had started having a discussion about that last week, about the fact that we really haven't had any discussion about the home ownership side. And Brandon had mentioned that they were in some very preliminary discussions with Urban Homeworks and the City Lakes Land Trust. And we had some strong opinions about that. And so I also want to make sure that we're not just passively approving that. That's something that I'd like to bring to committee to talk about, either, likely on the 13th. So anyway, it doesn't seem like we're going to be able to get through this tonight. I don't think that there is anything that we can really legally do on the market rate side. That was my whole point in the first place.
Grace. Well, am I skipping Hillary? I think it's Hillary. You had a comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. You can go to Grace. I was looking for something. If you can circle back to me. Thanks.
Okay. Grace.
Thanks. I think this is an important thing that it sounds like we'll have to table it, but just I guess if we're tabling the motion, it doesn't matter. But I guess I was confused because you said like all of the housing applied and also 50%. So I just wasn't sure. I've been trying to find it in the preference policy. Does the preference policy say 50% of city housing, or are we saying we're applying the preference policy to 50% of the house? Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Like, is the 50% within the preference policy, or is it 50% of housing units are applied to preference? I don't really care. I'd just like to know. And then I'd like to think about how we can do that and make it work for market and rental, and make sure there's also ways we can fill it. I assume that there's people there, but I'm also concerned that if they're like, well, we couldn't find anyone, and then like what happens after that, right? Like, I mean, I know there's a lot of people here, but like the specific demographic of people who have been displaced in North Minneapolis who then also want to live here, like, I don't know. I'd just like to hear some more feasibility on like if we can get that filled realistically, and what happens if, maybe that's solved by it being 50% of the units are eligible to enter. Yeah. So 50%, where is it? And also feasibility of getting those units filled.
Got it. Okay, I'm okay with tabling as long as we can get answers to the questions that have been raised.
Is it, this is Hillary. Could I circle back to what I was looking for?
Yeah.
Okay. So I wanted to note that in the PDF that Eric shared, and I'll make sure to include that on the meeting materials for this meeting on the website, that states that it's 50% of the units. So within a development. So units that will have preference applied will be identified at the time of enrollment through Minneapolis Homes, financing under the perpetually affordable housing programs. Staff will randomly identify 50% of units within the preference target area and 50% of units outside the preference target area to provide even distribution of units with a preference option. So again, I would say it's 3 pages, well, 2 pages and then a little bit of a third page. So I would have you read through that, for bedtime reading tonight. And then also, I wanted to note that in the December 4th, sorry. Sorry. I'm looking at the wrong draft coordinated
That's being
plan.
recorded.
Order in the jar.
I'm looking at the wrong dated draft coordinated plan. So I'll just direct you to the project values section where it's project values, outcome strategies. The affordable housing page, goal number 4, affordable housing, does have reference to a strategy the objective, oh my God, is decreased racial disparity and housing cost burdens. The outcome being reduction in cost burdened households in North Side. And the strategies include commit to implementing the Minneapolis housing preference policy for rental and ownership housing and prioritize marketing to current and former residents. I realize the conversation tonight, so I'm just stating what's there. And then I also wanted to note on that page in the next section of strategies, number 4 is in the next box of strategies, provide home ownership opportunities that are affordable to current Northside residents with the possibility of perpetual affordability offered through, and it says a land trust model it says for some units. But what I wanted to note was in discussions with CPET housing staff, CPET housing staff have been looking into a perpetual affordability model, we'll say, that is not like, an existing land trust. So I can get more information on that from them. And so I think that was the points I was trying to make, if that's helpful.
It's page 28 and 29 of the plan.
That's super helpful and sounds really cool.
Can I add in a little bit, Madam Chair?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So from a land trust standpoint, we have to remember that this property is be owned by the city. So that the city would be your land trustee. And because the city owns the land, we can apply that property to unsubsidized units. And so it would be all of the, if the committee and the plan went to basically be more extensive than the city's policy to apply to market rate units, it would be 50% of all the market rate units. And this is where I think the committee has been talking about how to really be connected around realtors, real estate agents, marketing, target marketing is, if you can't find people who meet the qualifications, then by all means they can rent to people that aren't, that don't meet those qualifications. But it all really comes down to the efforts of identifying people who would meet that preference. But it's all the units, and we can go above and beyond what's down in the city's policy because the city would be the land trustee.
All right, Melissa has a quick comment.
Yeah, just kind of piggybacking a little bit on what Grace was saying, as well as Eric, and then we need to identify, the length of time that these properties can be held, as well as, how early can you create a waiting list of, reviewing people of who's even eligible before the completion of the development, Brandon. But yeah, I mean, even afterwards, after development is up and running and folks are moving in, with these recommendations we're putting into place, how long are they supposed to be subject to holding these properties, looking for these people? So we need to think about that. Or if, I don't know if in the city, is there guidelines with this particular preference policy that you allow, or is it just open-ended, for particular buildings and developments?
Mary has a question.
I just want to throw this out there. I know we don't have time, but I'm wondering if somebody like Habitat for Humanity, those kind of groups, if they participate, if that gives us more flexibility or less flexibility or whatever. Just a thought. Thanks.
Grace. Mr. English, you're after Grace. And I'm cutting everybody off after Mr. English.
Yeah, it's just super quick, just to be sure I understood you correctly, Eric. So if if we were to have a like city operated land trust sort of thing for the site, all ownership and rental units would be, the preference policy would apply to all of those, all units on the site. I just want to be very clear on that.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what I'd say is, the city is, by virtue of the city leasing the land, we're essentially becoming a land trust. Like
Oh,
the
so
city will,
it's
right?
already.
Well, I mean,
It's
the city
already
will
going to
own the
be
land.
subject to the
So,
preference policy.
yeah, well, the preference policy, what I'm saying is we can extend it past, the preference policy would extend to subsidized units for rental when it gets
Right.
passed. But you could do a preference policy for all of the units, including the unsubsidized units, the market rate units, because the city owns the land. But let's just remember that that's, the city's going to own the land. That's how a land trust would work in general, is they, help with the, keep the cost down. But we're not envisioning selling the property other than the other conveyances we've talked about at length in the past.
Gotcha. Thank you. I just want, it's a little jumbled thing.
Gotcha, Mr. English.
Okay, I don't want to take up much time, but I think what I heard, I want to just clarify that at some point, if the market rate units are not as integrated, let's use that old-fashioned term, as we want it to be, that then all money gets green, as one of my partners say. You can't hold them open forever. If there are people who want to move into it and you have not met your 50% target, that's just a reality. Am I right? And because the question of length of time that I think Melissa raised is real for anyone. I know if I was building it, it would be the same thing. So I guess I really need to know that. At some point, you target it, but at some point, it becomes filling it up so you can pass on some of that money to the community.
So Brandon, for that, what would be the length of time prior to completion of the development of a particular building would you begin looking for tenants?
Typically, it's 2 to 3 months, I believe.
Okay.
I mean, you want to ensure that your delivery dates are right, because obviously people are going to move in, so it's not. As far as setting up waiting lists, let me talk to Devin on that and see how he handles that. But I know that like he'll open his sales office typically in that 2 to 3 month range.
Okay, good to know. So you can visualize what time frame.
All right, Brandon.
What's that, Bill?
Mine. How long can you hold open units?
I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head either, but I'll find out.
This is Joanna. I think I took a bunch of notes because I feel like a lot of questions were asked about the preference policy. So I think that maybe what we'll do is come back with in our list of items some answers as well as the open questions. Summarize like either it's an open question and it's currently in the plan and here's where it is, or it's an open question and here's the answer to the questions you raised here, and we'll get that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gotcha. Hillary has a couple things to bring up before we end this meeting.
Only if we're at that time.
Yeah, I believe we're at that time.
Okay, Melissa had made, this is just to address something Melissa was asking about earlier about the, I guess, kind of the media presser yesterday, but in particular the engagement with Insight online. And so I wanted to address that. Markella was asked to be a part of the media briefing yesterday, along with Devon and James from the Learning Tables. And that was as a representative of the CPC. I would welcome anybody, of course, as we've discussed before, to participate in anything. And that Insight came together very quickly and was arranged not by the city. James has his own network, and so he was able to help connect us. And that was in the span of a couple of hours. And so I just want to be clear that, that's how that came together. And so that said, I am going to forward those events as calendar invites, so you all know. And then I'll try to send reminders as possible to without cluttering your inbox. And so we have our, agenda items coming together for January. Hey, Bill, I saw that. We have our agenda items.
I'm not talking to you.
We have our agenda items coming together for the 13th, so I'll work with Markella and Miss Vanessa to finalize that agenda. And as always, you know where to find me and how to get hold of me if you have questions or comments.
Hillary, I talk to you in my sleep. No, I'm just playing.
I call for adjournment.
Yep, I call for it too. Anybody else got anything else? Nope. Okay. Love y'all. Have a very happy holiday.
Happy holidays, everyone. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
See y'all in
Bye now, everybody.
2021.
I don't want to be
Good
out.
rest.
I'll see you before that at all these upcoming events.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Woo.
Exactly.
Right.
So no
Don't
see you
do
next
that.
year. We're gonna see you this year.
All right.
Have a good one, guys.
Thanks,
All right, y'all.
bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.